Up the coast, he hissed at her. Run, not the road, the shingle, below the bank where they can't see you from horseback. Go and don't let anyone see you came from here. It was not help. It was the opposite of help, dressed in the clothes of it. It got her away from his jetty, which was the thing he actually cared about. But it was at least not betrayal. And she took it, because a drowning woman takes the plank, even from the hands that would not pull her into the boat. She gave him one last look, not grateful, just measuring. The look of someone learning exactly how much a stranger is worth. And then she was over the bank and gone into the dark below it, the child silent against her, and the fog took her. The riders came onto the jetty a moment later, 4 of them, mud to the knee and short of temper, and their sergeant swung down and put a torch near Bevan's face and asked had a woman come this way, a woman with a child. And Bevan gave them his 40 years. He gave them the closed, slow, stupid face of an old ferryman who wanted no trouble. He said he'd seen no one, that no one in their right mind ran to the water on a night like this, that the fog was too thick to cross, and he'd taken no one over, and would not have if they'd begged. And the lie was easy, far easier than the lie should have been, because most of it was simply the truth. He had taken no one over. He had refused. He could stonewall the Margrave's men with a clean conscience about the one thing they asked, and the cleanness of it was the most disgusting thing he had ever tasted. The sergeant searched his face, and his empty boat swore and split his men. 2 up the coast road, 2 down along the shingle, and they kicked their horses on into the fog after her, and the jetty was quiet again. And Bevan stood alone in the lamplight, with his hands empty and clean and useless. He had done it. He had kept out of it. He was safe, his boat was his license was clean. And somewhere below the bank in the dock a woman was running with a child along a shingle that the riders were already pounding down, and the odds she would not make it were as plain to Bevan, who knew every yard of that coast as the back of his own old hand. He had not handed her over. He had simply built a wall and stood behind it while she was run down on the other side, and told himself the wall was not the same as the hunt. The fog said nothing. Era, somewhere out in the white, said nothing. The silence was the loudest thing he had ever heard. He stood in that silence a long moment, and the strait did to him what it did to everyone. Only it did not even need the deep middle of the water to do it now. The fog came up over the jetty itself, thick as it had been all night, and out of it, as it always did, came Era. 19, the patient, sorrowful face. But she was looking past him tonight, he thought, past his shoulder, down toward the dock shingle where another woman ran from another set of the same men, as though even his dead could not quite bear to watch him do it again, and had turned to watch the one he might still save instead. He had spent 22 years believing that the worst night of his life was already behind him, sealed and finished, a thing he visited in the fog and grieved and could not change. He had never once imagined that the strait might find him the same night a second time, the same cold choice with the same stakes, as if to ask whether the grief had been mourning or merely habit. That was the cruelty the local people never quite understood about the fog. They thought it showed you the dead so that you could miss them. Bevan knew better, standing there with his clean hands. It showed you the dead so that you would know yourself, so that when the night came round again, as nights do, you could not pretend you did not recognize it. He recognized it. That was the whole horror and the whole gift of 40 years on the water. There was no version of this in which he could tell himself he had not known exactly what he was choosing. He had been given, almost unbearably, a second draft of the worst page of his life, and the pen was in his hand, and the only question left was whether an old man could write a different word than the one he had written at 19 years remove, or whether the groove was simply too deep now, and his hand would carve the same letter however much the rest of him wept over it. And in it, the last fork of the night opened under him, quiet and total. He could let it lie. He had made his choice, and the choice was made. Chasing after her now would undo careful thing he had just bought, would put him on the shingle in the dark among the Margrave's men. An old fool meddling in what he had explicitly refused to touch, and likely get him killed for nothing. Because the riders were mounted, and he was old and slow, and what could he even do? He could go inside, and bank his fire, and let the night take ever it took, and live with it the way he had lived with Era. Quietly, deeply, foreverly, but alive and safe, and out of it. To accept that he was a man who watched from behind walls, and always had been, and to stop pretending the watching cost him nothing and simply pay the price he had already chosen. Or he could go after her. He could stop being the man behind the wall, even this late, even after the no, even with the riders already loosed down the shingle, could take the one thing he had that they did not, his boat and his 40 years of the water, and push off into the fog and row hard down the coast inside the line of the bank, and try to reach the woman from the water before the horsemen reached her from the road. To turn his cowardly clean refusal, in the last minutes it could still be turned, into the thing he should have done at the jetty, and meet his daughter's memory. Not with another night of careful silence, but with an old man meno flat out through the dark to undo. Barely, at the very edge of too late, the worst habit of his life.